Hey everybody, KC here. So I have three short stories to share with you this morning, all about companies in the food service / restaurant business that have done a little innovating, tried something a little bit different, and in fact may have found business models that are going to not just sustain them through the pandemic, but might actually give them a different business model at the other end. One of the stories I saw was in the Boston Globe, and it was about a restaurant company there that, like a lot of restaurants during the pandemic, fell on hard times. It was really tough to kind of generate enough revenue to stay afloat and stay alive. But it ended up that this restaurant company had a sister company, which was a CSA, community supported agriculture company that would send out boxes of fresh fruit and produce on a monthly basis, bi-monthly basis, whatever it happened to be. And they said, well, gee, if a CSA will work, could we try a CSR, a community-supported restaurant? And so they started selling subscriptions. And apparently this is happening in a number of different places where there are restaurants around the country that are selling subscriptions, basically shares, that allow people to get a restaurant food in a box. And it depends on how much you want, how many people you're trying to feed, how often you do it. Sometimes they'll give you enough for dinner and lunch the next day, but basically creating a kind of stability, right? Because these are things they can count on. In Boston, they said this has been a game changer, bringing stability to a troubled segment. There was also a story in the New York Times about how hotels, which, obviously are being underused because of the pandemic, are starting to rent out their kitchens as ghost kitchens to companies that want to start small restaurants, but obviously don't want to open a restaurant in this particular environment, but would love to have a chance to kind of test their food, test their concepts with an audience on a takeout basis. The restaurant's got all these kitchens, so basically they're renting out those facilities, and it gives these small entrepreneurs an ability to experiment, to try new things, to build a business and a reputation. So at some point they may actually be able to open their own restaurant, but they can do it at a fraction of the cost they normally would be able to do it. Listen, hotels have gotten pretty good at this, right? A lot of them are renting out their rooms as office space for people because, again, people were not going to offices the same way they were before the pandemic. Again, an interesting kind of twist. And the other story came from Beachwood, Ohio, where they had all these restaurants, right? And these restaurants were, they were having trouble staying in business because of the pandemic, and the takeout business they were doing, well, too much of their margins were being eaten up by the likes of Uber Eats and DoorDash. So what the town of Beachwood, Ohio decided to do is they had an economic development fund. They threw $10,000 into it and said, we'll create our own delivery business. We're not going to charge a percentage. We're going to find drivers. We're going to pay them a flat fee. And basically, we're going to provide a delivery service for the restaurants in our town to the people who live in our town. And then it's really smart. They wanted to keep their restaurants alive. That's part of the tax base. Consumers feel really good about it because, frankly, it's their tax money. They might as well, participate in this whole project. And it kind of keeps the money in town. Then it keeps it rotating. And again, it makes it work economically for everybody. So these are three really interesting stories about how companies and/or communities are coming at problems created by the pandemic in different ways. A little twist here, a little innovation there, and suddenly you've got something different that seems to work. It'll be interesting to see the degree to which these new models, persist when the pandemic is over. Maybe Beachwood, Ohio decides, hey, something, we're going to continue providing this service because it makes sense for the restaurants that we would like to bring to our town. Maybe hotels are going to carve out space for ghost kitchens. Hey, maybe that could be a profit center. And, I love the idea of a community-supported restaurant. If I had one locally, I'd sign up for that in a second if it was a restaurant I'd like. These are ideas that don't have to end with the pandemic. Now, here's the thing. The other thing, there's supermarkets a lot of them have seen a terrific 2020 because suddenly the competition that we're getting from restaurants that was gone. They shouldn't get complacent because restaurants will be back, and they may be back with business models that are going to make them more competitive down the road, not less so. So what that means is restaurants have to find a little bit of a twist here and a little innovation there. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.